Welcome to Authentic Educators, a podcast by teachers for teachers about best lessons, favorite classroom moments, and strategies you can use today. My name is Dave Brown, and in today's episode, we speak with my friend Kayla Angstadt, who's creating a world that she wants to live in and embracing different cultures while doing it. Kayla is the founder of Cross Cultural Connect, an organization rooted in empathy and human connection. Based out of Costa Rica, Cross Cultural Connect offers immersion and pen pal programs with Costa Rican students and other students around the world. In this episode, Kayla shares about cultural curiosity, being a global citizen, and her cultural iceberg activity, which was the impetus for this conversation. As is often the case, Cody and I felt like this conversation opened more ideas about the possibility of education, and by the end, we felt like we were just getting started. We hope you feel the same way and enjoy. All right. So Cody and I are today with a guest that I'm super excited for because Kayla, you are probably unique among most of the folks that we've interviewed. Majority of the people we've talked to have been public high school teachers, a few middle school teachers. You are the founder of Cross Cultural Connect. It's an organization that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had some students working with you. Why don't you talk briefly just about that? What is cross-cultural connect? And maybe this might be deep, but you want to give us like a bit of a thesis of like what is Kayla A all about?
Okay, well, I'll do my best to keep it brief. But first off, thank you so much for having me. This is pretty exciting. Um, so maybe just a little bit of an origin story, I think will kind of put it all into place. I went to university, Kutztown University with Dave, and became an educator, school teacher. I had an opportunity to study Spanish. It was my minor. I ended up studying maybe for 7 years throughout high school, throughout college. And I never really had any other native speakers or anyone in my life that spoke Spanish. And it was, we were just getting into I didn't have a smartphone until college. And so National Geographic was pretty much my connection to the outside world. I never traveled outside the country. And I had this opportunity to go travel to Costa Rica to study Spanish for 1 month, which was a lot cheaper than paying an extra semester of college. So I signed up for it. And in my mind, I was going to Costa Rica with jungles, monkeys, toucans. And I ended up in downtown San Jose. And I realized that it was a big city that I didn't think there were big cities. And I realized that the world was totally different from what I expected it to be. I had the opportunity to make local friends there, learn Spanish locally. And then after graduating, I actually went back and started working as a river guide and really learned culture and learned from firsthand from people. Um, and that's when in 2014, I decided to found Cross Cultural Connect and create an international pen pal program that focuses on multicultural education, effective communication, and global citizenship. And the opportunity was that we wanted to make virtual connections for people and students because not everybody gets the opportunity to travel, especially at a young age. And so making it much more cost affordable. But rather than, I went back to the US and I went into being a traditional teacher and I tried to tell all my students, like, oh, it's not this way, it's like this, it's like that. And they all just like, okay, teacher Kayla, we just want the grade. Like, are we done now? So I wanted to be able to give them their own experience. And that's kind of how the whole thing just ended up snowballing, was through authentic learning experiences.
So I forget if we've connected about this in the past, but I'm somebody who, and plenty of people say they love travel. I mean, I love travel and can so connect with that idea of wanting like an authentic opportunity to learn a language. I remember in high school, I wasn't a strong Spanish student. I actually maybe didn't connect with the teachers that I had, so I found lack of interest in it. And then it was after college, I had different opportunities to go to Spanish speaking countries. I actually brought students to Costa Rica and have a good friend from Peru, so I went and stayed with his family for almost 3 weeks. And it is hard to connect those dots about what life is like beyond your world and your little box on the map. what are some of the things, I guess, that some of the like experiences you can talk to that led up to you realizing, all right, I'm going to make this educational foundation or this company. Maybe talk a little bit more about some of the like early phase things that you did with cross-cultural connect, and then eventually I want to hear about a few really cool theory or big ideas you have and lessons you've done. So
Yeah. So we're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit in the United States. We're also like registered here in Costa Rica. That's where I live now. And gosh, how to start? I was also a really good Spanish speaker on paper, right? I got all the grades. I got, it looked, I was taking the higher level classes, but until I actually started speaking with people, did I realize how little I knew. And I realized that I wanted to be able to give that opportunity to the students so that they could be excited about it. And I noticed when we started doing these connections, the class participation really went through the roof. We had one of our first connections was a school in Boston, and they had some seventh grade students that they wanted to connect with the school in Turrialba here in Costa Rica. And in one of the letter writings, one of the students here in Turrialba said, "What's the Boston Tea Party? It sounds like a really boring. Don't feel bad about it, but it just sounds like you're just drinking tea or something." And like,
yeah,
it's not his fault. The kid didn't know anything about what the Boston Tea Party was, what it meant, or this historical impact it has on a whole other culture, right?
yeah,
And the student in Boston wrote like an essay on what this was. And it's like, if you can't pull teeth to get a student to write an essay on something like that, maybe if they want a good grade or something, but it was one of those like really fine teachable moments where the student wanted to share their culture with their pen pal from a different country who had no idea. And I really enjoy not correcting the grammar in the letters. Will sometimes if there's like a Spanish class in the US connecting with an English class in a Spanish speaking country, we will have them write first time, try it in their language of study, and then like, okay, what were you really trying to say? Write it in your language. And then we'll send both, but then the student that's studying the language will read the first one, right, that the student's studying, and then they'll read the one where they tried to write it, and it's comes out all of these really natural grammar lessons. Like one kid
mhm.
tried to say like, I don't know if he was trying to say like "what's up, dog" or "I have a dog," but he wrote "yo soy un perro." It's like, I am a dog. It's like, no, he didn't mean that. Like, because if we look at his English one, he was trying to say this. And so all of these grammar discussions come out where you're like, oh, okay, it's really important you don't say this because it's like this. And so it started virtual, and we've been able to connect not only in Costa Rica, but we've connected with India, New Zealand, Chile, Mexico, Spain. We've been in lots of different countries, having the opportunities to connect. And now what we're doing is in Costa Rica here, especially because we're an organization here, we've been doing in-person connections with pre-existing travel companies that are bringing students here into Costa Rica. And we give them these 2-day experiences where the one day is an icebreaker. They meet with me or they meet with another cross-cultural connect guide. We call them, we try to stress away from teachers
Yeah.
and classes. And we do a session where we kind of focus on opening our minds a little. We do the cultural iceberg, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And we do these, kind of like open your mind a little bit more to what makes you you and what makes them, right? If we're going to put yous and thems to it. And from there, we're really hoping like our next big ideas is to start having our own groups come down, connect with schools for 3 months, and then come down for 10 days to have an experience with their pen pals and to kind of see with their own eyes, where are these students coming from and how are they living their lives?
Kayla, you just shared, I don't know, a dozen things that were
I
in
know.
my mind examples of like such heady and impeccable practices. I mean, again, not to speak about myself, but I think about, I said a minute ago, or a couple minutes ago, I was a struggling Spanish speaker in high school, but when I had the real world connection and went to Mexico, not like on a cruise, but into Guadalajara and stayed with a family when I was 19, and I brought up Costa Rica and Peru. Those experiences for me were they were my sort of gateway travel experiences in my life that made me really seek out more experiences and study abroad, bring students abroad, teach abroad. I taught for half a year in China. Like they were game-changing experiences for me. And what I think about the connection to what you're doing is you're maybe giving kids that earlier because I think plenty of students, and this is not a knock on, there's plenty of amazing language art or foreign language teachers who do give kids authentic experiences, but it is hard. And I think what you're doing is, for lack of a better way to say it, it is an authentic, here's a real person with real questions that lives in a real part of the world. And it makes you realize, like, well, they might not know about the Boston Tea Party, but like, what do I know about Costa Rican history? And so
Yeah.
there's all these really neat experiences that sometimes kids need that moment to actually have that sort of inner voice be like, oh, or outer voice from a teacher metacognitively thinking out loud for them saying like, what does it look like if you don't grow up in Pennsylvania or in the USA, or what history, why would you study this history? What history would you be studying? So I think like the real connection you're making is amazing. I also love that you're not correcting the grammar. That's something that stuck out to me as like a former English teacher. Like you meet people who are like, oh, you're the grammar police. Well, that's the best way to kill an idea or to kill somebody's like spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of foreign language teachers could learn from you in that you got to learn the vocabulary and the grammar, but probably leading with the conversations and the fact that we are all human beings living in the same world, having a lot of very common experiences. We're just the only difference is we speak a different tongue. I think that so much of what you do is incredible. You're about to talk about, you said you'd lead into this cultural iceberg lesson, which when we spoke on the phone before meeting today, that was something that stuck out to me as really cool. And you also spoke to the idea of being like a global citizen. You're obviously modeling that, living in Costa Rica, traveling and connecting people from across the globe. I'd love to hear about your ideas of A, what does it mean to be a global citizen? B, you spoke about culture and you had a line that I loved about that. And then I guess C, I'd love to hear about this cultural iceberg lesson. I'm sorry that I'm like giving you really convoluted questions.
Start me off with one, and then if I miss something,
Yeah, let's talk about the global
yeah.
citizen piece. Like, why is that so important to you? And how, let's speak to that first.
Okay, for global citizenship. All right. So that's kind of like where we tie it all together in most of our programming. Maybe it's a tangent to start off of, but I have such a huge respect for teachers. Like what you guys are doing to be in the schools every single day and to be working with the students, that's no easy task. And so I have a huge respect for teachers. And, we're supposed to fulfill these requirements that are given by our school, our government, our country, etc. And really all the countries all over the world, all the teachers all over the world have many similar requirements that they also need to fulfill. And so what we do with Cross Cultural Connect is we try to fulfill a lot of those requirements, but then on top, like put a little extra, like what it means to be human and what it means to be a global citizen, and to apply real world application to all of the things that we're supposed to cover in a class. And so we try to make it easier on the teachers that like I was a teacher for a good while. I know that it's a struggle. So for
I love
global citizenship,
that marriage of the two, right? Like the fact that you're trying to do what we have to do, but better, and
well, not just better, but like
with
assisted
realness to it, I
because
guess.
yeah, like I'll work with two teachers in two different countries and help facilitate their connection. Because I was listening to Dave's letter writing podcast. Go check that out if you haven't heard it already. And like teaching takes a lot of time, especially if you want to do it the right way. and reading all of these kids' letters and setting it up and organizing it. It's like, yeah, it's an amazing experience, but it takes a lot of time. And so that's why we try to make it like as accessible for teachers and as easygoing for them. But so that was a whole tangent there that I had thought of. I didn't want
Well,
to
Dave
forget.
gave you like 8 things to hit,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
tangents
yeah.
unexpected.
So really at the end of the day, with the teachers, with the students, with the parents, with anyone who's really experiencing this program and this activity, is that we recognize that no matter what language we're talking in, whether it's good grammar or bad grammar, at the end of the day, we're all human. And at the end of the day, we all, have maybe an older brother or a younger sister that we find frustrating, or, oh, we got to do our homework. And we find these little human connections that really allows us to recognize that no matter what culture we're living in, whether it be in a high rise in New York City or somewhere in Ethiopia, that we all have struggles. We all have happy moments, sad moments, and that's something that we can really, hopefully connect over and have a positive mentality, when we especially think about what's going on in today's world and how do we respond to those things.
That's amazing, Kayla. The problem with this podcast is sometimes we want to talk forever about things. What we want to balance it with being as pragmatic and practical for folks. I'd love to hear about this cultural iceberg lesson. Maybe you can talk about where that takes place and what that is.
Yeah. And so we do that in both in our virtual classes and our online classes. I'm really sorry if you're hearing this ball. My dog has been he just wants attention right now.
Oh,
Of
good.
course, I'm on a call. So we do them in almost all of our connections where we focus on the cultural iceberg. That's not something that we've invented, but we've definitely tried to make it more of a fun game, something a little bit more exciting. We will do an activity where we have all of the whole list of things that you find in a culture, whether it's the visible things, the less visible, and the non-visible. We'll write them out in Spanish and in English, and then we cut up all of the little words and we put them down on a table, and the students have to do a relay race in their language of study and work together and figure out what it means, right? Oh, you bit me. And so what we need to do then after that is we start talking about our cultures and what we can see if we're traveling or if we're watching television. It's like, oh, we can see that they're dressed differently, or we can see that they're speaking a different language, or we can hear that. But we can't see their values or their morals or their roles in their house. Like, what does their mom do? What does their dad do? How do they handle celebrations, birthdays, deaths, funerals, marriages, all those different moments. And so being able to first start off with that, we ask the students to start with themselves. Don't go studying a different culture. Reflect on yourself. How do you do that? Until I moved to Costa Rica, I didn't realize how Pennsylvania Dutch I am. Like, I didn't realize that was such a different thing from what I'm living in now. And so that gave me like a lot of pride. It was something that I was really excited to kind of dive into a little bit more. And not only do I have like, okay, one side that's really Pennsylvania Dutch, but I'm from the USA. Like I can have all these different opportunities of food I can go to. There's a lot of different cultures around me. There's things that I like to do. My morals, my values, they all happen because of the place that I grew up in, right? And what we then dive into with the cultural iceberg is that we say, okay, well, so here's the Kayla growing up in the United States, but now Kayla lives in Costa Rica, and she now likes gallo pinto, which is like rice and beans for breakfast, which I would have never eaten growing up. I like to listen and dance to salsa music. I'm not very good, but I enjoy doing it. Ahora hablo español. And so like I can, I've grabbed onto all of these things from a different culture. And so at the end of the day, I have my general culture, which I can say like is Pennsylvania Dutch or from the USA. But now I've developed my personal culture, which is kind of a formula of all of the different cultures and all of the different life experiences that I've had to then join into what makes me me. Yeah. I
I
don't want to
love
go on
that.
too
No,
much.
I
It's
love that
supposed to be a
because I
short
think
session.
Oh, that's great.
so much of an education, in my opinion, is for people to understand themselves. And so, what you're doing with cross-cultural connect here is, from at least from what I'm understanding, is helping people kind of understand who they are, where they are, what they believe, why they believe it. And when you can then do that with somebody that's not down the street from you, that didn't grow up in the same county as you, or the same state, or the same country, is to recognize, oh, wow, I'm a small part of this giant human puzzle. And I had a question because I'm meeting you for the first time, and for Cross Cultural Connect, I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the like home run target audience in American schools would be foreign language classes that are actively like studying other cultures. But I imagine it's not limited to that. Like
Oh,
thinking,
Yeah.
good. You cut out for a second.
oh, sorry, if you're a listener out there, like thinking, wow, I want to, well, one, you can go to ccconnect.org. It looks like that's your site, but like, how would they go about creating these experiences for their students?
Yeah. So yeah, the idea with all of the things that we're doing at like what you're saying at the end of the day is that I can recognize that I have something to share with the world, but with an open mind, I can also recognize that other people have something to share with the world. And when we're able to collaborate with effective communication, where we can talk to each other calmly, where we can not let our emotions and our values take over, right? And we can learn from each other on a very genuine manner.
Hmm.
That's when we can start making progress in this world. And so we definitely have this as a totally open. Right now, it's mainly for schools and for homeschools where students can connect all together. We're going to be opening up more virtual groups, but we really do like to try to keep it a little structured because there are some, like, I'm not going to name other names of pen pal programs, but there's a lot that are a little too free range and it turns into maybe sometimes like a dating site or like anybody can just go on, right? I've experienced and like looked into them. I'm like, no, you know what? I want to keep this a bit more educational, but in a safe environment where we can speak our ideas and feel safe, right? So we mostly work with schools, but one of the New Zealand connections that we did was with a kindergarten. Like
Oh,
kids
wow.
can have the concept of learning about different things like this. And we've gone all the way up to college level where we've had experiences with students. And so it really is open. We're super flexible when it comes to our curriculum. We'll have a basic structure, but we make it fit into an English class or a social studies class or even a science class that wants to focus on global citizenship. A lot of times, we'll focus on a global issue. One of our main ones is equal access to education, where we tie in with a business class. And our students make bracelets. And then with all of the bracelets that we make, which are eco-friendly, they then are able to sell them in the US or in Costa Rica. And then with all of the funds that we collect, we help build schools or buy technology for low income schools. And so we've built composts, we've done like all sorts of different things. And it's been really exciting to see, even though there's no snow here, the snowball grow bigger and bigger in the sense that, somebody comes with an idea. Literally, students that came here in Costa Rica did a 2-day experience with us. They were so motivated about it. They wanted to start a club. They're called the Common Ground Culture Club. They started it in Portland, Oregon. And that was all on them. They had their first session. They're going to be, doing their own connections. And so it can be club form, it can be school form, but it's totally open, like we accept all shapes and sizes.
I love the idea too that you're always clearly you're somebody who values just big ideas, and I like that you have structures in place and things that you've done in the past that work, but that you're always growing. We're not going to talk about this today because it'd probably be a whole separate thing, but I know you just launched another company, Jungle Flow Expeditions, but maybe we'll talk about that another time.
I think I could
If
do
you
it
want to
in
plug
one
it,
minute
you want to give
that
1 minute, why don't you give a 1 minute plug about that? And then
Well,
have
it
a
ties in with
final.
cross-cultural connect.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. And
In
then
the
I'll
sense
ask you a
that,
wrap-up question.
yeah. So Jungle Flow is an expedition company that we started because we really value safety. Like I had mentioned earlier, I came back to Costa Rica as a river guide. Not my traditional teaching degree, but man, did I learn a lot while I was doing that. Learned a lot of slang, and and so with Cross Cultural Connect, we're creating a program called Connect Costa Rica, and so that program will be also working with Jungle Flow Expeditions because the 10-day program will be running it through Jungle Flow with as a tour operator, because a lot of students in Costa Rica, or a lot of people, don't take advantage of the nature here. The whitewater rafting, canyoneering, the mountains, the waterfalls. They have maybe a lack of education on how safe it can be if it's done properly and if you're observing the conditions. And so being able to come to Costa Rica and have that, okay, I'm going on these tours, but being able to do it with your pen pals that you've been writing to for 3 months, it kind of creates that next level experience for students. And so that's really what is that authenticity, not just going on a vacation. And that's kind of where we're going with some of our programs there with Jungle Flow.
That will
That's
be super cool when you
yeah.
get there. That's
Yeah, we're
awesome.
hoping to launch some in January this next year,
Yeah.
July next year.
So, a mix of what you've talked about today and what you and I have talked about previously. You've mentioned a lot about cultural curiosity, and clearly you're fostering that. And you said the line earlier about how culture is both it's both where you're from, but also what you create. So I wanted to ask a question that's related to that stuff, and it's maybe you giving some advice for our listeners. So for listeners who want to build the same kind of cultural curiosity in their lives or their workplaces, what's something practical you think that they could just start doing today?
I think even something as simple as exploring Google Maps and Google Earth, I think is such a great starter. We've been working with an indigenous community that just got Wi-Fi installed in their school, and they all are starting to dive into the world of technology, where so many of our students are almost blinded by it now. It's a balance that we need to find. And so being able to kind of take a step back to really use technology for good, and being able to explore different things, but then to question it and to see, how that relates to them, or if it doesn't relate to them at all, and where can they go with it. And so, yeah, I think really just starting to look into different cultures and to start reflecting is a really good start. And then, yeah, if there's a way to start connecting with those cultures, it really is. That's the most authentic way.
Yeah.
Even if it's something local, it doesn't have to be something hundreds of miles or kilometers away. It can be a local school that's, one in a city versus one in the countryside. Those are two totally different mindsets that students come from, and maybe even a whole set of values. And I think just even being able to talk to your neighbor sometimes might be more important than talking with somebody on the other side of the world.
Well, I love that insight, just getting curious about everybody, because I think most people will always be not too surprised, hopefully, but that everybody has something to offer that's new and unique. Kayla, as most of these conversations tend to go, when they're ending, it feels to me like they're just beginning, and I would love to just keep this conversation going. But thank you so much for everything you do, and for sharing, and for all of your passion and enthusiasm. And for our listeners, you can learn more at ccconnect.org. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much. That was really, really fantastic. I really appreciated that. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you for listening to our conversation with Kayla Angstadt, and for joining us on Authentic Educators. If you have questions, ideas, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out at authenticedpod@gmail.com. If you enjoy what we are doing, the best way to support is to subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Our mission is to uplift educators spark inspiration, and share practical ideas that make teaching more meaningful. So thank you for your support and for helping us help others.